What's going on, everybody? It is Q from Retro Q Gaming here, back in effect as always. And I want to welcome you back to the second episode of the brand new Quack Experimental Podcast. Don't worry, the name will be explained at some point in the future if you don't already understand. But that's beside the point. That's not for today. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. There's a good bit of stuff going on this week that I wanted to talk about. Not so much in super detail that, say, I did before or in a video or whatever it was. But anyway, we'll start off with some wholesome gaming news because, well, gaming is terrible and the world is a terrible place and it's full of terrors and dark and full of terrors, or whatever the proper statement of the quote is. But anyway, we'll go with some wholesome stuff just to start strong and go from there. So first up, I want to talk about something that is kind of heartwarming, really, to an extent. You might know the Skyrim grandma. She's a YouTuber out there, or streamer, whatever you want to call her. And she plays pretty much almost exclusively Skyrim. And she's like 80 something years old. And she has a massive following, like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, which is pretty damn wholesome because you have a grandmother, or at least someone of that age, who just loves Skyrim so much. And she was so happy to an extent. She was so happy and so sad and disappointment, disheartened at the same time because she obviously loves Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls, but with her age, she was so worried that she might not make it to Elder Scrolls 6. So Bethesda actually stepped in. Todd Howard himself, who is obviously much smaller than she is, they put her in game. Shirley Curry, the Skyrim grandma, whatever you know her as, she will officially be an NPC in the next Elder Scrolls game. I was going to call it the next Skyrim game, but she'll officially be an NPC in the new Elder Scrolls game when it comes out 74 years from now, which it's just wholesome AF. There you go. That's the best way to describe it, because it's not usually every day you always see petitions of fans for people getting recognized. Or I mean, wasn't there one with World of Warcraft with Robin Williams, something along those lines? There's all sorts of other ones. Nintendo obviously shoot them all down, and there's other companies who just shoot them all down. But Bethesda, a company who is at this point kind of known for making a lot of mistakes the last few years. Well, they've kind of done something right. You can argue it's PR or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's still a pretty wholesome move anyway, especially for someone like her. So that's pretty good. We'll start off with that as our little opener because, well, it's going downhill fast after that. So next up, we have Persona 5, and not just regular Persona 5, not Persona 5R, which we found out is Persona 5 the Royal, but no, we have Persona 5S. Now, this is still 100% unconfirmed, 100% unofficial, but Persona 5S tipped to be Persona 5 Switch because, I mean, it wouldn't be a game if it was it wouldn't be a Switch game if it wasn't a late port, am I right? But anyway, it's been kind of found in source code and website code, all that stuff. We will find out more information about Persona 5 The Royal as well as Persona 5S at the end of this month, the end of April, because they have a live action concert going on and they're going to give us proper, more information about both of these things, be it, I don't know, Persona 5 Smash, Persona 5 Super, Persona 5 Super Brawl, Persona 5 Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Who knows? Who knows? It could be anything. It could even be Switch. But to add a little bit of fuel to the speculation fire, Best Buy, I believe it was Best Buy. Yes, Best Buy. I'm almost certain it was Best Buy. Had an internal listing put on their system for Persona 5 Switch. So it could be the case. Best Buy has a bit of a track record when accidentally revealing games. It's almost pretty much everything they put on there almost comes true. But we'll find out at the end of the month. What do I think about Persona 5 Switch? I mean, I guess you could say it's great that more people get to play it and experience it. As long as the game isn't cut down and dumbed down and the experience lost in that regard. Because, well, lay port beggars gonna lay port beg. I can laugh either way, I don't mind. If they do get it, late port, you're considered irrelevant for new games and you're just a complete afterthought. Or if it doesn't get it, you're not even worth the time. I win either way. That's all I do. Winning. But anyway, keeping with the Persona, not so much the Persona 5, keeping with the Nintendo Switch style stuff and the potential leaks and potential upcoming games and all as well. Also on the Best Buy system, they had two other interesting things to talk about that were listed as Switch titles. One of them was Metroid Prime HD. Now, I throw massive, copious bowls of salt on this, not because, being a salty fanboy or a salty bitch about it, or a salty potato, but I'm going to look at it. You know what I say? Take it with a pinch of salt, because Metroid Prime HD has been rumored for years at this point. It's been rumored multiple different times for the Switch. Apparently, it's allegedly been complete for years. It's been rumored multiple times for the Wii U. Of course, why would they ever release it on the Wii U? Because it's an absolute flop console. But it could make sense, especially with Metroid Prime 4 coming out in a few years. So this could drum up hype and drum up interest in the series. You haven't had a proper Metroid game in a long time. I don't care what anyone says, Other M does not count. So we haven't technically really had one since Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. Or, depending on how you want to look at it, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. Not counting the 3DS games, even though I love them to an extent. The side-scrolling 2D style ones, the old school style the old school style Metroid ones. So we'll see how it goes. There's also an interesting link that we don't know about. As we do know, we have an upcoming remake on the Switch for Link's Awakening. However, Best Buy system also has a link to the past Switch listing. Now, it's obviously this is complete rumor at the moment. Who knows what it could be? Obviously, Link to the Past is the best Legend of Zelda game there is, despite what Breath of the Wild fanboys will tell you. Hey, even Ocarina of Time has a legitimate contendership, but Link to the Past is that little bit better. So we'll see how it goes. We don't know anything about it. There's no potential release date. There's no anything really. So we'll have to wait and see how it goes, because there's still a lot of time left in the year. Nintendo will obviously have multiple directs. They will have one of their live from or not so much live for each, or digital presentation from E3 kind of thing, and we could see it then. And hopefully they don't. I'm worried that they would change it and remake it in the same style as Link's Awakening. That art style is extremely derisive. I do not feel great about that art style yet. I could come around to it. I love Link's Awakening. It's a great game. It's one of the first Zelda games I played, because when I got my Game Boy Color years ago, my first Game Boy, I didn't get an original Game Boy, I got a Game Boy Color. I bought two games that day. I bought Link's Awakening DX because obviously I had loved Legend of Zelda Link to the Past, and I bought Harvest Moon. So yeah, it's a pretty big deal to me. Loved it. Played so much about it. But that brings us on to more Switch stuff. Q, you're talking about so much Switch stuff. What's going on? Who are you? Or blink twice if you're being held hostage and forced to talk about this. Anyway, we have Wolfenstein Youngblood. Now, Wolfenstein Youngblood is the upcoming new Wolfenstein game. Technically a spin-off, I guess. It's being sold for a significantly cut down price on every platform. It's €30 on Steam. But it's been announced today that the Switch version of this game, despite having a physical release in North America, so it's going to be sold in a box in stores in North America, is going to come on not a game card, but in that physical box sold in stores, it's going to have only a download code. It's not going to be a small 1 gig, 2 gig, 4 gig card with the rest of the game as an additional download. No, this one has no physical media, no physical storage whatsoever in the box, and it's just a download code. That's it. Now, a lot of people are unhappy about this for obvious reasons. If I was a primary Switch user, which no one should be, I would be understandably upset as well. Just because when you think about it, look at my collection of games that I talk about. I'm a big person for game ownership. I love to be able to play the game. I love to be able to have control over what I've spent my money on. But I don't like surrendering it all to companies. And maybe 15, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever it is, when the Switch servers are turned off, your money on that game is gone. Your money on your games where you have to download the majority of the game before you can properly play it is gone. That's a big issue. And I can understand why people are a bit upset in that regard. But a lot of people aren't upset in that regard. A lot of people are upset just because even though it has a physical box, that it doesn't include the game. Now, like I said, it's a very strange one. That you're gonna have to listen to how I said those again because it doesn't make sense. A lot of people want digital games and all. They don't care about that. They will happily buy a digital game. They just kind of want a box just to have. They don't specifically want the game card for physical ownership. They just want it because it's, but they don't want it for physical ownership of the game so that they can play it whenever they want, and they're not at the mercy of Nintendo servers or whoever, digital media, DRM, over the next 20 years. They just want it because it's supposed to be on there. And I will counter that entire point with one thing I have reiterated multiple times over the 2+ years the Switch has been out at this point. Because there are so many games that are marred by no physical release, Switch tax, where the game is more expensive on Switch because of the game card size or whatever, or games that don't have a physical version at all, only on Switch, of course, because they're physical on everything else, or games where you have to download the majority of the game before you can fully play it, a la LA Noire, NBA, there's so many other games, Wolfenstein, things like that. The big problem with this, everyone always says, oh, such and such a company, such and such a developer, they're really cheaping out on this, that, and the other. They're not at fault. They're not at fault. There's one company, one place, and one business that is to blame for this entire situation. And that system is Nintendo. Not so much that system. That company, that person to blame, that whatever, is Nintendo. 100%. Nintendo opted to use this game card style system for their Switch. Now, someone's going to say, oh, what, did you expect them to put a Blu-ray drive in there? No, if that was so much of an issue, I expected them not to design a system that would use this type of storage that creates this type of issue. They use a proprietary media which is created in such small amounts that is physically and financially unviable to do it at higher production costs, higher production volumes. Just because when you look at everything, all the ones, the games, the modern games, the very few that the Switch can actually get, which again is very, very few, all of those games have to be cut down so much that they still don't fit properly on the Nintendo Switch medium. Usually they might fit on a 32 gig card. I believe there's one, if not two games that use a 32 gig card. And there's definitely one of them, which is the Dragon Quest game on day one. Is it Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2 bundle? That's on a 32 gig card. Off the top of my head, I can't remember anything else that's also on one. But these game cards are prohibitively expensive because Nintendo wants their cut. Nintendo also has to pay for them in manufacturing costs and manufacturing quantities of such small amounts that they cost exceptionally large amount to produce. No one is to blame for this system and companies using this in their own advantage but Nintendo. They opted to create the system. The only one to blame is them. They could have designed a completely different system that did not use something like that. But no, Nintendo engineered a system and went ahead with physical media like that. With all these issues and all these problems. Nintendo is 100% to blame. Everyone who just, I know I'm reiterating myself here over and over again. I just really want to drive it home. Everyone who says, oh, such and such a company is using, they're being cheap because they have to use a smaller game card and put it as a download. Blame Nintendo. Blame Nintendo. You don't have any other company, any other manufacturer, any other anything making a system with these types of problems. Why? Because they use proper, non-proprietary physical media. It's that easy. Someone's going to say the Blu-ray comment yet again, oh, why didn't you put a disc drive in there or whatever? That's still Nintendo's fault. Maybe you shouldn't have designed a system that is forced to not be able to use one of those unproprietary medias, the mainstream, mainline media. Come up with something else. But your game card style and all the problems therein are your fault, Nintendo. That's it. No one will ever convince me otherwise. And frankly, anyone who thinks otherwise is just absolutely, absurdly wrong. I can't believe I have to reiterate that anyway. Moving along, but still staying with some Switch news or Switch. I don't know if you want to call it news. It's more of the same, really, because despite what Switch fanboys like to ignore. Last year, we had one of the creative directors and producers of the Yakuza series, whose name I will try to read but probably butcher, Toshiro Nagoshi. He is the series producer. Last year, he said that the Nintendo Switch was probably not a proper fit for the Yakuza games. And in a recent interview, he said yet again, there's no planned ports or nothing to do with bringing Yakuza to the Switch is currently in any type of development or any types of plans or on their roadmap or radar whatsoever. Frankly, I say good, because these games would be absolutely butchered down so much just to try to get them onto the Switch. Because not every game should come to the Switch. It can very barely run any modern game. And I can only dread how much being one of them cut down that much. Because if that's your experience with the game, I feel sorry for you. If your first experience with a third-party game, a non-exclusive game, is on a Switch, I feel sorry for you. It's the best way I can say it. So I still laugh. Like, haha, you don't get Yakuza. I do. I can get it on whatever I want. I can get it on PS4. I can get it on PC. I can't get it on Switch because, well, even though I have a Switch, it's not coming to it. Oh, feels good, man. Feels good. Anyway, we're pretty much done with the Switch stuff, believe it or not, as far as I know anyway. But moving along, we have... Oh no, I skipped over one, actually. Nintendo. This is a very quickly one. Very quick, brief one. Nintendo, please bring up the Fire Emblem Three Houses Special Edition for pre-order in Europe. It's been available multiple different times for pre-order in all over the world, in different regions, just not Europe. Give it to us in Europe. Put it on Amazon. Hell, put it in Gamestop. I will go and get it. I want that special edition. I want to be able to secure it. I need a release date. Or not a release date. I need a pre-order date for that game. For that collector's edition. Because we know when the game is out. I know what the special edition is. I need it. I have a mighty need. Mighty numbered need. Yeah. Anyway, now we're properly done with the Switch stuff. So let's move on. We have... This one was technically actually kind of over a week ago, but I kind of forgot to talk about it. So, we all know Metro Exodus. Metro Exodus released Xbox One, PS4, and PC. But on PC, despite being advertised on Steam for years, and only pulled from Steam and put exclusively on the Epic Game Store for 1 year, about 2.5 weeks before launch, well... Everyone, of course, was always wondering about the sales numbers. And we all know that companies will try to damage control. And companies will try to give the best sounding version of a story. Even if the real world facts are terrible, they will always try to give the best sounding story. I'll give you a perfect example. Back when Smash was released on the Wii U, back when Smash was released on the Wii U sales increased most places by like 400%. You could see it everywhere. It was in all the articles. Fanboys were spouting it everywhere. Oh, sales up 400% of Wii U consoles. And then you look at the number, and they sold 2,000 units the month before, and this time they sold 8,000 units, which sounds much better. Wii U now sells 8,000 units, or sales up 400%. Sales up 400% sounds a lot better. Then you look at the real world of it and the realistic nitty and gritty, and you're like, wow, that's terrible. So I think this is another instance where this is actually happening. Very selective PR, because I was going to say Deep Silver. I believe it's Epic Games have announced that Metro Exodus sold 2.5 times as many copies on the Epic Games Store as the previous game, Metro Last Light, did in the same period on Steam. Now, if I remember right, that period is about a month and a half, maybe about 6 weeks. So, in the first 6 weeks on the Epic Games Store, Metro Exodus sold 2.5 times more copies than Last Light did on Steam. This is a terrible metric, and I think it's perfectly and purposely done this way. Because let me tell you this, right? As a lifelong PC gamer, in May of 2013, when Metro Last Light launched on Steam, PC gaming was nowhere near as big as it was now. Metro Last Light was also not a very hyped game. Metro as a series was not a massive series. Everyone loved Metro 2033. I didn't play it. Believe it or not, I didn't play 2033 until after Last Light. But Metro Last Light was not a very hyped game. It actually sold fairly lukewarm at best. And in the PC climate and the PC gaming climate in 2013, it just didn't really sell well. In fact, in the same period of time, Metro 2033 actually sold more than Metro Last Light. So Metro Last Light is the worst selling of the three, technically, in that period. So, this is intentionally done to make it sound better than it is. There's a reason why they didn't give exact sales numbers. Because think of it this way. If Metro Last Light sold 10,000 copies on Steam in that period, that means that Metro Exodus only sold 25,000 copies in the same period on the Epic Games Store. See, it's very, very misrepresentative, and they do this on purpose. I mean, realistically, if it sold millions of units, they probably would have said sold 2.5 million units over Last Light's 200,000 in the same period. So they do this on purpose. So overall, I think it backfired on them. I think the sales numbers were far, far less than what was originally projected or what they might have expected on Steam. We'll probably never know, but I think that's done on purpose to really, really drive that home and just kind of hide it almost because it's too obvious. Absolutely too obvious. Now, speaking of other launchers and Steam and whatnot as well, we all know that Origin for the last couple of years has broken away, done their own thing from EA. Ubisoft, they tried the same thing with Uplay, they actually failed and basically went crawling back to Steam. We have the Epic Games launcher, which probably has no intention whatsoever of going back to Valve. Couldn't remember who made Steam for a second. No intention of going back to them at any time soon, probably won't. We also have Bethesda, who did the same thing. They moved away, put all their own games on their launchers, their upcoming games, such as, well, Fallout 76, Rage 2, Wolfenstein Youngblood. There's a couple of others on there too. Most likely, if it had gone well, they'd also have put on the likes of the new Elder Scrolls game, Starfield. I get the two of them mixed up. I think it's Starfield. And whatever new Fallout games were coming up. However, it completely backfired. Bethesda must have had absolutely awful and terrible sales compared to Steam because they have announced that all their games, their upcoming games, as well as their existing ones like Fallout 76 and their upcoming ones like Rage 2, Wolfenstein Youngblood, and most importantly Doom Eternal, are all coming to Steam. Fallout 76 will be ported later, and the other games will be available at launch. This will be to many people's joy, many people's praise, because let's face it, clearly their launcher has flopped. Clearly their sales have not reflected what they wanted to do. And, well, they're pretty much just getting bodied. They're just getting bodied. And now that stuff is coming back to Steam. So that's good for many people out there anyway. Still sticking with the Epic Games launcher. This isn't so much interesting or important, but I just want to talk about it anyway, it'll only take a minute. So we have the Quantic Dream games coming to Steam. Well, yes, technically they are coming to Steam a year after the Epic Games Store. But we have Heavy Rain. I was going to say Quantum Break. Why can't I talk today? Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and Detroit Become Human. All of those are coming to Epic Games Store, PC exclusive for 1 year, or Epic Games Store exclusive for 1 year, and then coming to Steam a year later. Now, when these games were launched, or when these games were first announced, their respective product pages actually had system requirements listed on them there. Now, I went to the trouble of saving these system requirements because I was kind of interested in them. Now, originally, the minimum and recommended specs were posted. The minimum spec for all three games were as follows: an i5 2400 CPU running at 3.4 gigahertz or equivalent, which is, I don't know what, some terrible AMD, no, it wouldn't even be terrible, it would be like a Ryzen 1. So yeah, you have an old, like 8-year-old CPU from Intel and a, Ryzen, because, well, AMD. Anyway, GTX 660 or equivalent, and 4 gigs of RAM. This makes perfect sense because a GTX 660 is roughly the proper equivalent of what's in the base consoles for PS4 and Xbox One. I realize that two of these games were originally PS3 games, but they're clearly basing them on the remaster for PS4, especially considering the architecture as well. But the system requirements for all of these, the i5 2400, it completely destroys the Xbox One and the PS4, but I can see how it fits in there as well. The GTX 660, like I said, is roughly on par with what we have in there, and the 4 gig of RAM is kind of basic for modern games. However, they did have the recommended requirements as a little bit higher in some regards. i7 2700K CPU or equivalent, which completely destroys even the Xbox One X by leagues and bounds at this point. And more importantly, to a lot of people, 12 gig RAM, which wasn't anything special, but a GTX 1080, that's a beefy GPU. That's my GPU. So you know it's a good one, or at least it was when it launched. So you know that's a fairly beefy GPU. So it led a lot of people to question, are these games, is that like running at a 4K 60 frames per second with max settings? What's the deal? What do we know about this? Because we don't really know any PC centric features that are going to be in these ports. However, it also could have been the fact that these games could be massively unoptimized and they could just be kind of brute forcing everything with the CPU and GPU. But it looks like we might be getting these games better optimized, and the upcoming system requirements will probably reflect this, because the system requirements, both minimum and recommended, have been removed for all three of these games. Oh, also I should say that Detroit Become Human will be running on Vulkan API, whereas the others will be just running on old school DirectX. So I believe it was DirectX 11 for the other two. But that's kind of beside the point. It's just the fact that all three of them have been removed, so I do think that the games are going to be better optimized over time and we'll probably see better specs. Or maybe they just went live early and were leaked. We'll have to wait and see anyway, because who knows how it's going to go. So there's also an interesting one at the moment, because we all know there's all sorts of stories that we've seen over the years about game developers, how poorly they're treated, crunch time, not being paid overtime, some bullshit stuff that studio execs do and contracts do to screw over the rank and file and all as well. And it finally come to the point where a lot of game developers actually want to make a union. They want to form a game developers union so they get proper rights, proper treatment, proper benefits, and they just don't get fucked over, which completely makes sense. I mean, I'm surprised they don't have one now. Although it's a catch-22. If everyone kind of banded together and tried to get a union or tried to make a union, they could, I won't say technically be fired. I don't think you can be fired for that, but companies can get around that. And I'm sure if you push out all the current game developers, there's a whole batch that is just waiting to rush in, just take the bare minimum and just say, oh yeah, we don't need a union, we'll do all these hours and all this stuff just to get into the field. And that kind of defeats the purpose and they don't get anywhere. But interestingly enough, during all this talk of a games developer union forming, you actually have SAG-AFTRA. Now, that's the Screen Actors Guild. You have all the actors, the voice actors, the mocap actors, etc., who have been in their own embattled contract disputes and strikes and all over the last few years. The entire community took up and they supported the game developers. They know sometimes how this can affect game developers, how they can be screwed over, how can they be taken advantage of, and they wanted to air their support. There's a big number out there, a lot of people see it, a lot of exposure when it comes to the support for the game developers union. Honestly, I think it should happen because, why wouldn't it? But I don't think they're going to get away with it. These companies will fight long and hard and do whatever they have to do to not treat people properly, to not allow unions so that they can not take advantage of people. I don't think it's going to happen. Fair balls to them for trying, and I do hope they get it. And obviously fair balls to the Screen Actors Guild and all their members for actually helping out and trying to boost the awareness and all too. But they're in for a long battle. I'll give them that. They're in for a long, long battle. But anyway, moving on. I don't know if this counts as a Switch news or PC news, because it looks like the previously Switch exclusive Project Octopath Traveler, or Project Octocrap Scam, because it's not really a good game despite what anyone would tell you. Well, you'd always find that only Nintendo fanboys that would defend it because it's exclusive and because it has the nostalgic old school feel and look, but not the old school quality or even quality that RPGs have come to expect. Anyway, it's beside the point. It looks like that game will be losing its Nintendo exclusivity because it only sold I think it was like what, a couple of million units or like 1.2 million units or something like that. The game had massive stock shortages at launch because, well, Square Enix didn't think it would sell because it's a Switch game. It didn't sell massive amounts, and they've already said multiple times that the future of the series is probably going to be on multiple platforms because when you look at the upcoming prequel, it's actually launching on iOS and Android. So now, through a listing on the Korean PC Gaming Rating Board, which is like, your ESRB and your PEGI system and all, whatever they have in Korea, Project Octopath Traveler is launched or is listed to potentially launch on PC. So that could be coming there. I don't recommend anyone buy it because it's not a good game, even if it will tug on your nostalgic 16-bit era feels. Not a good game, so I highly recommend everyone stays away from it. But it is what it is. Feel free to get salty over losing your exclusives. Now, this next one is... Ooh. This one is going to be messy. So I want to talk a little bit about some unfortunate news that I've already made a video on, but I want to talk about in a bit more detail now. So we have Borderlands 3. Now, Borderlands 3, the release date has been announced. It is in September 2019. Unless you want to buy the game on Steam, in which case it's April of 2020. So Borderlands has a 6-month exclusive release contract on the Epic Game Store, much to many people's dismay, myself included. I want to play Borderlands so bad that I cannot commit to not buying it for 6 months yet. I don't know where I sit on the whole thing. I want to play it so bad that I'm considering buying it on the Epic Games launcher, but at the same time, I really don't want to. Like my own personal, what do you call it? My personal principles kind of prevents me from doing it at the moment. But anyway, that's months away. I'm sure I'll feel differently and maybe I'll finally solve it in the meantime. But anyway, with that 6 months exclusivity deal, it does mention a lot of questions anyway. So Epic Games have come out and said that at the end of the day, it's a publisher and or developer decision if they take the contract and they make the game Epic Store exclusive, timed Epic exclusive deal, whatever it is. But here is the problem with that. When you think about it, Epic Games only has to make them an offer they can't refuse. Think about it. Epic Games makes so much money, literally dozens of billions of dollars from Fortnite. So they can afford these extremely lucrative contracts, these extremely lucrative timed exclusivity deals. You could look at a game that in its best possible form, best possible sales, best possible review, might only sell 2.5 million units. And Epic Games can come along and say, well, if you sell less than 8 million units on our store, we'll make up the difference. That's an offer they can't refuse. That's a significant chunk. Now, I'm just pulling those numbers out of my arse, the 2.5 million to 8 million thing. But they can make offers like that. They can afford to make offers like that to get people into their store. That's how they do it. They get people in first. They get you hooked first. And then later, they hope you'll move to their store properly. Because at the end of the day, yes, technically it is a publisher and developer choice. But Epic can make them an offer they can't refuse. And at that point, is it really a publisher or developer choice? Because when you think about it, they're still a business. Businesses do what businesses do to make money. So they must be offering them an absolutely obscene amount of money that's enough to completely offset the biggest potential player base by a large margin. Because if their game is projected to sell 3 million units on Steam, they're not going to take an Epic contract for, oh well, if you don't sell 3,100,000 units on our store, we'll make up the difference. That's only a small margin. They might be willing to take the risk or not. Probably not, because it's such a small margin. However, when you look at it, it has to be by a large margin. Enough to say, okay, we can lose millions of sales on this other platform, but the bonus, the contract we've made and that we're getting is just so lucrative that it completely offsets that and more. Because it clearly has to be worth their while. or they wouldn't do it. So it's kind of sick. It's kind of sickening, really. And when you look at it, Steam, I mean, what is it? The Epic Game Store has something like, what is it, 80 million users or something like that. Probably all from Fortnite. But Steam has 4, 5, 6 times the player base. And because of that, a developer has to see a number that will offset the risk of selling to a player base that's 1/4, 1/5, or 1/6 of the size, and still be able to justify the money to their investors, their return, whatever it is. And at that point, is it really a publisher or developer choice? I mean, when you're made an offer you can't refuse, you gonna tell Don Corleone no? Don Sweeney? Hopefully Don Gaben gets off his fat arse and actually does something about it. Anyway, where's my Half-Life 3 Gaben Steam exclusive? We know that'll work anyway. So moving away from the Epic Game Store, because that's wholly depressing anyway. So we have Halo. Now we all know Halo. The Master Chief Collection, including the upcoming Halo Reach Remastered, is coming to Steam and Windows 10 on the PC. But we have a little bit of a positive update. I don't know why everyone was running with all these extra articles about, oh, Halo Master Chief Collection could launch on PC in full by the end of the year. Why is everyone making that news? That was said in the original announcement, and then everyone was reporting on something different from weeks later. I don't get it. Do people not pay attention to this stuff? All I know is when you look at the initial announcement for the Master Chief Collection on PC, they said it's going to be done completely over the course of the year. It's going to be done by the end of 2019 is what they said. And everyone is running with this separately. That's not what I want to talk about anyway. But, however, to get us going and get us started, it looks like Halo Reach Remastered, which is the only one left to be released on console and will be the first one released on PC, will be kind of beta tested. They call it flighting in the Master Chief Collection stuff, but it will be flighted, if you will, on Xbox One here in April, with the PC version probably flighting shortly after it on the, well, obviously on Steam and the PC. Now, I've personally signed up for the PC Insider program. Actually, technically, I signed up for the Xbox One at the same time. I want to try the PC one more than anything. But I just don't get it. I just went back in my mind to everyone else just going, oh, it could be done by the end of the year. They said it in the launch. Okay, I'm getting off topic. So anyway, the flighting is scheduled to start this month on Xbox One, possibly this month on PC. And I do think that once we get maybe 2 games deep, with maybe Reach and then Halo Combat Evolved, I think after that we're going to see fairly rapid releases. Now, I'm not saying, every 2 weeks. You might see one every month, one every 2 months, something like that. Because at that point, they'll have the groundwork done. They'll have the important stuff done. They can just tweak certain smaller things. They can tweak maybe weapons. They can tweak FOV. They can tweak frame rate. They can tweak anything. All the smaller stuff. Once they get the groundwork done, the proper controls, the systems, how everything works in maybe the first. Let's just say they do the first game, Reach. And it's not perfect. They update and improve it. They use those improvements in Combat Evolved, and then maybe they're almost perfect at that point. They refine them a little bit further for Halo 2, then they're perfect and they have pretty much everything done. A couple of small tweaks going forward. Halo 3, ODST, Halo 4, that kind of stuff will come hard and fast, which is pretty promising. So I'm excited to see how it goes. I will hopefully get accepted to the flighting program. I'll test it out on Xbox One if I get that one. I'll test it out on PC if I get that one. Hopefully PC is the big one that I really want to test because, well, granted Halo Reach is great and I wouldn't mind playing it on Xbox One X while it's completely remastered. I want to see how Halo will perform and play and control and the experience will be on PC. We'll have to wait and see. Now, we're almost done here because next up, sticking with PC gaming, technically console gaming too, but I'm going with PC gaming, we have some news from Remedy. Now, Remedy are currently making Control, the game that looks like Quantum Break, but possibly not bad. They have also said that up until a few years ago, they had actually put in work for Alan Wake 2. Now, Remedy had done kind of an atmospheric teaser, an atmospheric trial or something like that, if you will. And they pitched to Microsoft. Microsoft shut it down, so then they moved on to Quantum Break at the time. Now, Remedy still owns the IP for Alan Wake, so technically they can get away with it. There might be one or two licensing issues involved with Microsoft because of some of the stuff in the game and how those contracts were initially done, but Remedy does own the IP. But it's good to know that they actually wanted to make Alan Wake 2. Now, they've said that their next couple of years are booked up. Control is obviously out this year. They probably have another project either in the works or already planned for maybe 2 or 3 years from now, because they've said that if Alan Wake 2 is going to happen, don't expect even an announcement or news or anything like that in the next few years. So if anything, it's not their current project that's Control. It's probably not their next project, but it's possibly the one after or beyond, which is good news because I fucking love Alan Wake. It's so good. Love Alan Wake. It's a really, really good game. Excellent PC port as well. Highly recommend everyone play it. You can pick it up dirt cheap on Steam, so I definitely recommend you doing that anyway. Now, we move on to our final little topic here, which is kind of a big one, depending on how you look at it, which is GameStop. Now, we all know GameStop is one of the last bastions of physical brick and mortar stores. I don't count really stuff online retailers, not like Amazon and things like that. But your standard brick and mortar store, your big chains, whatever. Sure, you've got some toy stores that sell games. You've got stuff in the US like Best Buy, which kind of does like a lot of everything. You've got stuff like that. And fair enough, they'll stock small amounts of games and all that too. GameStop obviously only mostly focuses on games. New, pre-owned, they also do some loot and stuff like that as well. But obviously it's in their name, their big focus is games. Now, since we're just at the start of the new financial year, which starts in 1st of April, the GameStop, what do they call it, a conference call, the investor call, and the investor report has come out for the previous financial year. GameStop, how much profit do you think GameStop in the whole world, across the entire planet, the entire company and corporation, how much profit do you think they made this year? Or last year, last financial year? Maybe $1 billion? No. 500 million? No. 100 million? No. 50 million? No. 1 million? No. They made a net loss of $700 million across the entire company. That is absolutely awful. Now we see why GameStop a few months ago was trying to sell themselves. They were trying to sell. Force a buyout, or they were trying to sell and find a buyer to inherit their company and possibly change stuff around and save their company essentially. A €700 million loss, $700 million loss. I'm sorry, is an absolutely astronomical figure. And they've also said in the same vein, the same style, and the same call that they're predicting on making no profit at all for the first half of this financial year. So from April, May, June, July, August, September, October, they're talking about making zero profit all the way up to October. They're really just hoping Christmas will carry them. Now, they tried that last year. Christmas clearly hasn't carried them. So, woo lad, are we finally seeing the end of GameStop? It's entirely possible, because this kind of thing, it's unfair to say it's a long time coming. Everyone will always look at the last maybe 2 or 3 years and say it's a long time coming. No, that's not the case. Sure, nowadays, digital distribution is huge. It's arguably taken over everything. Hell, look at last year on the PSN. The PSN alone, not even including console sales, hardware sales, peripheral sales, physical game sales, the digital-only PSN made more money than Nintendo's entire company last year. Think about that. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of digital-only money that GameStop doesn't see. Back in 2013, when these consoles launched, the Xbox One and PS4, the digital distribution wasn't up to snuff. It wasn't up to the standard. It's still not 100% perfect, but the quality and the adoption was not up to what we have nowadays. Every year, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can see that it's reflected by less people going to GameStop. More people possibly buying from Amazon, whatever it is. But the big thing, don't sneeze, Q, don't sneeze. The big thing is that people are clearly moving away from GameStop, and it could be the end. It could be the actual end. Everyone's always been saying it for years now, but this this is harrowing news for him when it comes to that. It's pretty big. It's pretty bad. Anyway, that's it. We are coming up here on the end of the second episode of our lovely Quack Experimental Podcast. Now I will do my usual little small cleanup segment at the end. What am I doing? Well, I'm still on the same kick as last time. I'm still playing Final Fantasy VI. I'm still watching some Batman, the animated series Blu-rays. And I'm still watching through whenever it suits. And I've got a couple of minutes to spare. A random AVGN episode in the playlist that I'm watching anyway. So there's not too much going from there, at least anyway. Obviously, Final Fantasy VI is a big game. And there's a lot of Batman the Animated Series, so I can't really go too much from there anymore until I finish up. So that's it, I'll leave it here. As always, I want to thank everyone for watching, listening, whatever it is you do. Feel free to leave anything in the comment section, slide into my DMs about something that I may or may not you might want to see me talk about, or whatever it is I might find interesting. Do whatever it is you need to do to like, dislike, hit the appropriate button, whatever. Feel free to hit the subscribe button and even ring the little notification bell. And remember, winners don't play switchboards.